Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. All things Middle-earth here with some custom campaign ideas that I think could be very interesting if added to the game. These 5 ideas I have here, I think if in the right structure of the game, could make the experience way better for social players or people who aren't playing 24/7. And even those who are playing, I think it'd be very fun. We talked through this on stream a little bit, and I want to share in video form with all of you the ideas. I've kind of added a little bit to the idea. So please, as always, let me know down below what you think. Is this something that the game could support or handle? Again, I personally have my own thoughts on the campaign system as a whole, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, but we're kind of getting ahead of myself. So let's go ahead and roll the intro and jump into it. Okay, so first things first, any campaign changes, first of all, I think should be limiting the amount of campaigns that we have. So I don't want you to see the title and be like, hey, Admi's always talking about fewer campaigns, only having one RP or non-role play, not both, and now he's wanting to add stuff. This kind of comes with the preface that we would have a more limited amount of campaigns. I am in the thought process that the player base of this game, how many players play this game, cannot support the amount of campaigns that we have. So while having player choice is nice, we end up having a lot less full servers than we'd like. So servers don't end up lasting as long. They're not very balanced. Again, we could talk about that for a long time. So in this scenario, we're going to talk through a hypothetical scenario of what these things could look like. In this scenario, we would have fewer campaigns, and then these kind of custom campaigns would be variations of a kind of simple or more simple system of campaigns that we have, which I think could be really, really fun. So seriously, let me know down below what you think. Again, I never know what the devs see, so maybe if they see something and there's a lot of players who get excited about ideas, they might consider trying something, even if it's just like a one-off thing, and who knows, they might not. But I'd love to hear your thoughts, positive or negative. Let me know what you think about this. So first of all, like I said, a reduced amount of campaigns. So in my mind, we need to have one option, roleplay or non-roleplay, not both. I know some people on either side are not happy with this. I am personally in the place where I just do not care anymore. If they had a means to transfer my evil side or good side one to the other, I would go back to RP if that meant the game was more unified in one kind of player base, and vice versa. Again, I know RP players don't want to go to non-roleplay at this point. I get it. You've been doing the same thing. It's a little bit of a different game. But to me, the health of the game is more important than the preference of that. So whatever people want the most, whatever makes the most sense, I don't even care anymore. I will do whichever one could happen, as long as I don't lose access to commanders I've paid to unlock. So again, as long as I could transfer evil to good or vice versa, I would go to roleplay, whatever. So in this scenario that we're going to talk through, there is just one option. I don't know I'm not going to say it's one or the other, but there's just one option. All the players play the same types of campaigns. So continuing on in this example, there'd be one type of RP or roleplay type of campaign. There wouldn't be both, and there would be less campaigns that we have. There wouldn't be the 6 that we have right here. We would have a season 1, which is for new players only, not even players making new accounts, because I do think a lot of people go in and make new accounts, have a lot more experience, and that does change how things work. So I think there'd be a separate season 1 only accessible on new accounts that have not played other seasons. So that is just for brand new players to get in and experience the game. Now, obviously, I don't know how many players are joining the game every day or week or whatever, so I don't know if that would actually work. But in theory, there is a separate season 1, new player season 1 that can be played by those brand new to the game. Now, there could also be season 1s for players who are replaying or starting second accounts or playing evil or good for the first time, whatever it is. That could also be a thing for new accounts, but I think it being separate from new players could be beneficial, because the last thing you want is to join as a new player and you happen to join the server that some group is restarting in, and you just get wrecked and you just quit and never play the game again. Because I'm sure that's happened before. Like our free-to-play experience we did several months ago now, we actually joined in during another group doing that, where they had a huge group. And even as a veteran player, it was like, this doesn't feel like a season 1 server. We're getting our butts kicked. I'm trying to play free-to-play, and it is not a very good experience. So I think there needs to be season 1 for new players and then season 1 for new accounts, if that makes sense. Then from there, there'll be a season 2. I think at this point you could have all the seasons 2s together. It's still before you get into bag end and have access to kind of more options, but it's like your second time, your second round of getting things adjusted. You go into a season 2, and that's like your last trial before you have access to everything. Then you get into bag end, and let's just say you have these banners here. I don't think there'd be as many, but we'll use these 2 Rebuilding Glory ones as kind of a placeholder for where I think these things could be. So first of all, I think there would be a very standard campaign, whether it's something like Rings of Power, whether it's something like Rebuilding Glory. I think we've talked about even an option where it's very similar to just season 2. A lot of people are kind of over the gimmicks. We don't want to level up buildings. We don't want to have to do this. We don't. It's just standard gameplay where you get in there, you have fun, you play with your Warbender Fellowship, and you fight other groups. I think a lot of people are kind of over like the add-in stuff. So there could be a very, very simple option like pretty much season 2, just, you know, playable, or maybe it's something like 3, which is still very simple, or maybe it is something like a Rings of Power, which it does sound like the game is going in that direction. So whatever that campaign is, there is a standard social version of the normal campaign available for anybody to join. After you played 2 seasons, you can join and play this campaign. Then there'll be another campaign here that is a competitive version of those campaigns. There would be some form of matchmaking involved in here to match good teams together, or just teams that want to be competitive. So teams can go into the set thing here to the competitive campaign. Maybe the period of time that you spend, you know, in registration is a little bit longer, but it's so that all the teams can get in. You couldn't register as a solo player in here. You couldn't register as an incomplete team. You would need to join and be playing with a team, so that these things are set up to actually have a lot of activity throughout the entire season, and very competitive groups can go in and actually challenge each other without, you know, going in and rolling a server because there's no one else there to fight you because you just got in a random server that nobody's in. So there would be a standard set of campaigns, a social for everyone, and a competitive kind of match-made based version that obviously that would require a little bit more work in the devs end to make sure that happens. But some kind of competitive version I think would be interesting. I'd be interested in playing that myself, but also there are times where life is busy or I'm kind of burnt out, and it would be nice to go, hey, I'm not going to do this season. We're not going to do this. We're going to go social. But then you might want to hop back into, hey, I'm joining this team or playing against, you know, these other really powerful teams that are signed up. Again, there's no groups of 12 that are in there that just get wrecked and have a horrible time, that kind of thing. So that would be the setup for what this system could look like. And then there are 5 ideas I have. Again, I know we're kind of into the video, but I feel like it's important to lay out in my mind what the structure looks like, because I don't want people to get the misperception that I just think we need more campaigns or versions of things. I think we have way too much. So in this idea that we're talking through, things would need to be reduced, whatever that looks like. I know there's no way to make everyone happy, so somebody will be upset that their favorite campaign wouldn't be available. But to me, the reality is I would play whatever they picked, I would do it if it meant the health of the game was going to improve in the future, because the player base was more kind of unified on one base, and we had more full servers with more action, that kind of stuff. So then in the social versions of the campaign that you can go into, first of all, they are shorter than regular campaigns. Instead of being like 8 weeks long, maybe they're about a month long. So they're more social. You can hop in more of them at different times. You can take a break and still get in one, and whatever. There are kind of these social campaigns that run a little bit quicker, and they have different themes to them. So maybe if you don't like one, you can wait for the next one and you see what the upcoming one is. So you take a few weeks off to get ready for the upcoming event. But here are the 5 ideas I had for this social campaign with some customized differences. So it's the same campaign, but there's a different twist at different times. So first of all, the first one is an R5 max on commanders in the campaign. This would obviously be something that'd be very, very good for free-to-play or low-spending players. If everyone's max level usable by their commanders was R5, it gives everyone a very even playing field on what's happening. Obviously, if you're a big whale or big spender, that probably sounds horrible to you, but in my mind, if you're spending a lot of money, it would make sense to play with a competitive team against other competitive teams. So the competitive server would make more sense, I think, for those who are really wanting to. And I personally have plenty of commanders over R5, tier 3 commanders over R5, above R10. And I personally, as someone who spent a very good amount, would really like a change of pace where everyone's at R5, so you just see some different commanders getting used than you usually see in the meta we have right now. So an R5 max, I think that would be one option. That would be very fun for free-to-plays, but also for other players just to have a fresh experience of this kind of R5 level gameplay. The next one is going to be no tier 3 commanders used. Now, there are some good tier 1 and tier 2 commanders anyway, so I don't think this is a huge handicap, but another just interesting thing, again, maybe not all of them, but these first 2 definitely lean into free-to-play / low spenders. So again, if you're a big spender, maybe you're like, I want to use my tier 3s, I've spent money on them, and that's totally fair. But that's where I feel like there, A, is a competitive option for you to play in, or B, if you don't like the campaign that's around, then there are shorter campaigns going in, so you can just hop on the next one that is a different customization that you like. To me, that makes sense. But again, myself, I have lots of tier 3s that I like using. Witch King is one of my favorite commanders. Gandalf the White, I have his R10 item, all that good stuff. And if there was a season where I was limited to using tier 1s and 2, I think it would make me use more of my roster and enjoy the game a little bit more. So that's, again, just me, but that's the second option, the no tier 3 commanders. Then the third option is the off meta campaign. This campaign would basically look at data in the game and analyze maybe the top 25% of the commanders that are used. So let's say a top 25 includes commanders like Witch King, Sauron, Sunin, Gandalf the White, Gil-galad, Gandalf the Grey, whatever it is. The top percent of commanders, again, it might be 25, it might be 15, whatever it is. There's a threshold that they pick that's cut off, and those commanders are unavailable to use in this campaign. So it forces everyone to use more off-meta commanders and kind of create a more balanced environment to see other commanders have their 15 minutes of fame in the spotlight, where they're usually countered a lot more, but in this campaign, where it's the off-meta campaign, they could actually be used. And those kind of commanders you've had for seasons and seasons sitting on the bench that aren't great might actually get some use here. But I think that would at least just allow rosters, again, to me, the whole thing is, I think I'm tired of the really repetitive meta with the same commanders over and over and over again. So the idea of an off meta where the top quarter is unavailable, I think would be also very, and again, as someone who has all of those commanders listed off, the very powerful meta commanders, I would be okay for a month or however long these seasons are, not using those to try some other commanders out on my roster that I don't get to because they might be fun or look fun, but they just don't compete. The next one would be, I don't know how this would work, but this one I think would be very interesting, and it is randomly generated commander lineup. So basically, again, maybe they split things up into a tier list of like most to least used commanders, and you get picked one from every category. Obviously, it would suck to do get a random list of what commanders you can use in a season, and you get the worst commanders in the game, and other people get Witch King and Sun and Sauron, and you're like, cool, like I'm gonna get wrecked. So I think it would generate you an option based on what you have on your roster, but you'd have an option in each like tier level, if that makes sense. So if you have 3 or 4 kind of like meta considered commanders, you maybe get one of those, but then you get another one that's in that next bracket below. Maybe some of those like still like okay, but like they just don't compete with the meta, but they can be okay. And then you also get some of those more, maybe they're used as utility, or maybe they're just, again, don't match up. You get some of those like Kamul or someone like that who everyone has a Kamul or Lurtz or whatever, but they just don't match up to the other guys. But maybe in this campaign, you have a randomly generated list of who you can use, and you have to use those for the duration of this campaign. Like that's the only ones available for you. And so you go in there and use those commanders for a month and just get to use some different things than you normally do. And the last idea would be thematic RP servers. So especially for those of you who like RP, maybe you'll like this. But basically a campaign that limits the available commanders to what region you choose to spawn into. So for example, if I choose to spawn into the Rohan area and I would choose to spawn there, I'd be playing as a good faction or whatever, I would have Theoden and Eowyn and Eomer available as an example for me to use. Again, maybe geographically you'd see who else falls into those categories, but the commanders you can use are chosen based off of where you spawn. Again, you could say the same about elves. If you spawn around Lothlorien, you might have certain elves available. If you spawn down closer to Mordor, you have different Mordor units available. Maybe the Nazgul are available, whatever it is, Uruk-hai near Isengard, you get the idea. So a thematic campaign that geographically based on where you spawn, chooses a set of, I don't know how many, they need to make sure there's enough for everyone. So you go in there and you're playing with these. Again, now, I don't know how the counterspell work because you might be really limited. Obviously, someone like Rohan is like super cav heavy. So that'd be a very expensive lineup to run. So there would need to be tweaks, and you may need to make sure it was fair. But some kind of a thematic, like really leaning into the thematicness of where you play is who you use. I think that would be very, very interesting. And those are the 5 ideas that I had. Again, I'd love to hear what you guys think down below. Which idea was your favorite? If any of them, maybe you don't like them. Again, I'm someone who does spend or has spent a lot in the past, and in campaigns that limit my roster, to me, just sound like a fun break. Again, maybe you do that and then hop back into a competitive server during your next season, but maybe you in your seasons off or during your break seasons or more busy times, you want to play more socially. It's like, hey, I'll go in and play an R5 only campaign for a month while I'm I just got, we just won in this campaign. Let's go take a break and try whatever it is. I think that'd be interesting. Now, the other idea here, and this would be something down the road, so this is by no means like a call to action, but if this is never something that gets implemented, but you like these ideas, it could be something that players choose to implement themselves. We would have to coordinate enough players to plan on signing up for a campaign the moment it opens, so we fill up a campaign. Then we could choose to implement some rules on the campaign, like, hey, R5 only, or again, no tier 3s. Again, some of them would be harder to do than others, but you could do somewhere it's like, hey, we've made it so you can't use certain meta commanders, or we've made it so based on where you spawn or what faction you start on, you do have to play with these characters. Again, obviously that'd be kind of difficult to control, but it's probably not something that'd be impossible if enough people were on board to where you could kind of get in there with enough people. And if other people choose to go against that, you kind of say, hey, if you're not, going to do this, then, I don't know what it would look like. But anyway, I feel like there'd be an option potentially where we could make this work. I just think it'd be very interesting. So let me know down below what you think. Are custom versions of campaigns something you'd like to see? Is it just a waste of time, or could there be something there where the campaigns we play are more simple, there's less bells and whistles and gimmicks, everything kind of gets cleaned up a little bit, we get down to the bare bones with the basics, but then there are variations of that you could play on a shorter time cycle, so you're not stuck in it where you can't use your commanders for months and months and months, but for 1 month I go into a no tier 3 campaign and play that, where I get some good use out of my tier 2 and tier 1 commanders that I like using. I don't know. I think it'd be interesting. Let me know down below what you guys think, and as always, I'll see you in a future video.